You know you're getting that every month from 10 years. You're getting $1,000 every single day. So are you going to pay 10% cap for this? Or are you going to pay a higher or lower cap for that? What?
Even like one thing
Is this which is more risky? Because of the yeah, that makes sense. So for this would be like and then that makes sense. All right, so you
Alright guys, let's get started with this thing. Alright. So,
can you make those bigger?
Full screen. 140%.
It's gonna be tough. For the next homework too, we're gonna go ahead and give you guys this model. It'll become available so you guys can do homework too, all starting from the same level. Something's gonna be kind of fun too if you guys are bored and don't have a whole lot on your plates, which is never. But if you want to try something different, we have. If you're going to go into development, you're going to go into private equity on the real estate side. The likelihood of you having an Excel or Argus test is very high. They want to know that you're going to come in and model and understand cash flows and project cash flows, be able to think through investments. So we'll post. We've all had several Excel tests just from internships. People want to know that you can run DCFs and model. We'll post a couple of the top ones that we have, so you guys can try your skills on that later, if you'd like. It'll be under the recitation notes on Stellar. So careful with that one. And Mabel's gonna run us through the homework. Nana and I will kind of be wandering around, helping you guys out if you have questions. This is all gonna be in PC, so the shortcuts we'll be able to use the shortcuts. It's a little bit more challenging, especially on Mac. So just bear that in mind. And it will be different functions.
So has David given you guys the format, like how do you actually place the DCF, and like has he given you the format?
No.
Not really. Okay. So you always, there's a particular way. How do you want to always set up your DCF? Okay.
I'm sorry. Just before you start, can you increase the size? Like
no, I can't. Unfortunately.
There's a slider.
Zoom in 135.
I do that, but then I can't see the whole sheet together.
We can't see.
Then you can't see it on your screen.
No, we don't need that.
Maybe at the bottom right of your screen, there's a slide.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. You can also do control minus, by the way.
Perfect.
It's in the same. This is a very typical format that you want to follow, right? So don't change the format. Like try and like make yourself very, what do you say, fluent in like the way you set up your Excel sheet, because you want to do it this particular way and not the other way around. Because see, so whatever you see in the blue cells, alright, you can actually change. So from 3%, you can make it 4%, 5%, and then you don't have to go back to the Excel individual column cells or column formulas to change anything at all. So you always want to keep all your inputs like over here, like in a separate column, so that you can keep playing around with it. You can play with the growth rate, you can change the square footage, you can change the vacancy rate like 6 months, 9 months to 12 months, whatever you want. So basically, whatever your variables are there, they're gonna be over here in the input section. So you wanna keep all your inputs on like a separate column altogether. Okay? So when you first set up, so obviously it's 10 years. So starting from 99, you go all the way like to 10, 11. So 10, with the 11th year, you guys know why we do the 11th year?
To calculate the price of selling.
Exactly. So 11th year, basically the only important portion of the 11th year is you want to use the yellow one to find what your sale price is gonna be. That's the only main reason. Otherwise, you're gonna do like for 10 years. So you lay out all your years like from 99 to 10, 11 years. Then you have all your inputs over here. The rents are always given in the market rents, or even the real world, like brokers will tell you like what the rents are. So basically your building is right now divided say into like these 4 spaces, right? Space 1, 2, 3, 4. You know all the different square footages of what each space is, right?
Wait, how did you actually determine that?
It's
Because
given to
we
you.
saw the 488, but the others, I don't know where you got those out of the. Oh, great.
All of them are.
It's literally, I've looked for.
Any building, see, this is very simple, like any building, even if it's not given like in real world, you can go and see, right? How many spaces the whole building is broken up and what the individual leases are.
Yeah.
So this information is pretty standard, just like area, like the square footage of your different leases, like how your building is broken down, okay? So once you have this information, you have the rent, right? So the first year is just gonna be like what is your individual lease square footage into what is your rent, right? So your rent into your areas, that is gonna give you your revenue, okay? So even like before you do, so you have this information, right, up until here. So how do you think about it? Like why do you want to do so in a DCF, you always, okay, even if you have a vacant space or if you have like, you're not earning anything right now, when you actually calculate your revenue, okay, what does your revenue mean? That even if you, right now you're not earning it, you want to put everything down. That's the reason you put it for a vacant space also. See, I've calculated like what is the square footage, what is the rent, and what is the potential revenue I'm going to have. Okay? So your first task is going to be just to find out what is the total PGI, like what is the potential gross revenue of my building. Like today, if this building may be like even 50% leased and 50% vacant, but still I want to see what is the potential amount that I can earn from the entire building, right? So that's the reason I do the first step is to find the total PGI. So I individually break it down into different components, multiply it by the rent, and find all the revenues, and this is my total PGI. Okay? Now rents, you know how Excel people are comfortable with, right? How to do rents, like how to just stretch it forward and make like 10 years. Just you just pull it forward for all the different things. Okay? So everyone up with me up till now?
You might have just said this, but I was looking at something. Why is it that your vacant space is equal to the total square footage of your building rather than the 95% stabilized occupancy of the square footage of your building?
So right now, what is the total square footage of the building?
So the total square footage of the building is 129,374.
Okay.
And then at a 90, if you were to assume at 95% occupancy, it's 122,905 square feet. I think what you're showing reflects adding up all the way to 129.
So this all, the sum of all of this will be 129.
Right, how come? Why, because that's showing a 100% occupancy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you're seeing what is the potential that this building has. You're right now, you just forget about what is vacant or not
Okay.
vacant. Even if it's like 30% leased and 70% vacant, you don't care. You're just seeing what is the potential income that you can gain out of this building at some point in time, whenever. If not today, 10 years down the line, what is the potential income you can get out of it? The first step is just to see what is the potential of this one building. If it is 100% leased and you're getting 100% rent out of it. Okay?
Okay.
So that's the reason you do the total PGI, you find out all of these potential revenue. Now it will come up to the vacancy allowance using residual probability, okay? So, okay, so the first thing is vacancy allowance. So remember the DCF is like again a probability model, right? You don't know for sure what is the probability. So if this guy, say my 57448 has a lease up until say 2002, okay? I don't know exactly in 2003, 4 years down the line if this guy is going to continue with me or he's going to go away somewhere else. That so I don't know at the end of like this year what is going to happen with this guy. Okay. So, but this is my assumption. I'm just like assuming that there is a 70% chance that this guy might just retain with me and he might just continue his lease for another 5 years or might not consider. Okay. So right now, Dr. Gretner just kept it very simple as 70% for all the spaces and like total vacancy allowance using this is 6 months. Okay. So now, what is the difference between 70% and 6 months? Why do we have like these two different numbers for vacancy allowance? Like, what different information does it give you? Anybody?
One's the likelihood that there's a renewal, the other is how long it would take to get someone else in there if it didn't renew.
Exactly. So one gives you the probability in terms of percentage, like what is the chance of this guy staying with me or not staying with me, and second is saying that how in terms of like actual quantity, what is the months? Like if this was a vacant space, completely vacant, how much time does it take for me to release the whole space? So in general, it takes me like 6 months to release this space. Okay, this can change depending on what market, what location. This number is per vacant. So you have two key information about vacancy always. You will be given like the months and you'll be given probability. Okay. Now space one. Okay? So when does this? We'll just do like first space completely, and then I think space 2, 3, and 4. I'll let you guys work on it individually. So for space one, what is the duration that is given to you? In your case, it must have mentioned when does the lease end for the first one, space
December
one?
2002.
December 2000. December 2002, right? So. Okay. So this is my December 2003. Okay. I'm just gonna highlight the formula so that I can explain. So anyone wants to take a crack at it, like just conceptually what this number should be? You have, just think about it, you have a probability, like, and you have the months vacant, okay? And you want to figure out how much would you put in your contingency allowance for whether the space will be leased or not leased.
30% of what your expected income
Yeah,
would be.
30%, and how would you do the math for it? How would you actually come up to a number like?
I'm not sure I follow, like, you multiply by the expected rental income by 0.3?
Yeah, so this is the same thing, right?
Or the inverse of the vacancy?
It's the same thing. You're doing 30%. What is my area? What is 30% is obviously the same thing because, right, 70% and you have 30% is the chance that you won't be with me. So you take that 30%, you know your square footage, what it is, right? And you know what the rent at that point on time in 2003 is going to be. So you have all the information you need to, realistically come up with a number in your DCF, which will actually give you a safeguard. If in case this guy doesn't I have some contingency in my plan. So 1 minus B12 again, see 1 minus B, you can do it this way, you can write it 30%, it doesn't matter, like as long as you understand the concept. Second, he's doing minimum of B17, so 6 months. So in a year you have 12 months, right? So if you have like 9 months, you'll do 9 by 12 to see, because 100% if it is vacant, right? You're taking 6 months to release it. Right. So you only considering 6 months out of the 12 months to accommodate in your factor. Is anyone getting this point? Like why you've done 6 by 12?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So 6/12, so he's just doing minimum of 6/12 or 1. Even if you don't want to use the min formula, it's fine. You can just do, 0.5, that's fine with me. If you do 9/12, even that is cool.
So, I mean, the way he set up this formula with the minimum is basically if you put in a vacancy allowance of 14 months, you could technically get a number more than one, in which case this would be more than 1 year. So that's what he's explaining.
Yes.
Okay.
But that wouldn't happen, right? In general,
I
like,
mean, yeah.
yeah.
It's just a,
I'm just saying, like, people at times, like, I don't know, there are a few people who might just, get thrown off with the formula or something. So don't think about it in a formula way. Just think about it conceptually, like, how would you determine a contingency, okay? So 370, then we do a minimum of that into your G5, that is the rent at 2003, what you're potentially going to get, and into your B30, that is your area, space of the area, right? So you got all your formula set up, you put your contingency over there, and so okay, so everyone clear with this one, right? Okay. So again, the same cycle. After 5 years, what's going to happen? The same thing, right? Because my lease term. Now, the second information that is going to give you is you have 6 months of this thing, 70% probability. Third thing is how long is the tenant going to be with me? Is he going to sign a 10-year lease with me, or is he going to sign a 5-year lease with me, right? That's how you're going to determine when is the next point in time in your timeline you want to include a contingency. Okay. So basically right now the case tells us like it's a 5-year lease, so we're just assuming it as a 5-year lease and putting another contingency after 5 years. Alright. And similarly you think about space 2, space 3, space 4. Okay. Space 2, I think so the first vacancy goes directly. Is it a 10-year?
I have maybe this is like a model building question.
Yeah.
When we started to do it with this particular point, I was trying to build all these if statements and separate lines to model like the new one coming in and turn it off and on. Is that just too complicated? Would you just like hard code it, like hard code in what those numbers would be in the years instead?
Yeah, you should never hard code it.
No, but I mean like,
That
you
is
need
hard
separate
coding.
lines for each one to be like, if it's on, what would it be? I don't know. It's just,
I'm not understanding what you're trying to say actually.
I don't know.
You're saying that you did all the if statements and everything and you hard coded everything in the
No. I'm saying to avoid that, what I was trying to do is on my assumptions. So like, give me an example here of when a lease ends and then it's going to start again. Where are you then adjusting it in the vacancy there to show that it's being accounted for?
It will come below this line.
Alright.
After that. So that's the reason I'm saying keep this structure, do not change the structure because this is you want to think like this. What I kind of get a sense is you're trying to say that how do you accommodate the if statements in like one line. But you don't want to do that, but because see, remove the vacancy portion completely, right? What if tomorrow you just want to sit back and analyze what is the potential income that I can earn out of this building? Then you want to see this first top 4 lines just to come, get a sense of your building in the first place. So you always want to keep your vacancy and your PGIs always separate so that you have a sense of both things because see, essentially vacancy you can work on, right? Today, suppose your building is 40% leased, so that is an opportunity for you, right? At least if you are an investment manager, what would you say that, let me change the lobby a little bit, let me go hard on selling this building. There's an opportunity for me to lease it up to like 90%, So that's the way I'm going to reach at my PGI. But you want to have a PGI to have an overall sense of the building, and then you want to keep always a vacancy separate from that. Okay. So similarly, 2, 3, 4, we built everything like that. The same formulas, the same way. Okay. So only for this portion, we use 50% probability rate. Okay. And why would we do that a 50% of a probability rate? Because it's a vacant space, right, in the first place. So we're just thinking that, it's been vacant almost like from the time I've taken it, it's been vacant. So I'm not very confident that it's going to get leased immediately or like 70% is a very high number for me. So then we've just reduced it to like 50% for this vacant space. So that is the only change in probability that that has been done in these years, in this one at least. So, okay, everyone clear up till this one, right? So third thing is like pretty straightforward. You get your total EGI, what is your effective gross income. So your PGI, you reduce all your vacancies, and you got your EGI. Comfortable up till now? Okay. Now let's go to the core issue. Okay. Let's go down now. Okay. What are the operating expenses made up of? Right. So operating expenses are all your janitorial expenses, your security expenses, your maintenance expenses. Okay, these are like day-to-day operations that you'll spend on. Okay, apart from that, what are the fixed costs in your operation or in your operating expenses? The fixed cost would always be your property taxes. Okay, second will be your real estate insurance, whatever insurance you take, electricity bills, right? So those are the fixed costs that are going to be there any which case. Like your taxes are going to come anyways, your insurance you're going to pay anyways, and the janitorial and the security and the management is variable. That depends on what kind of a building you are. Like you're a very what do you say, upscale modern building, you might spend more on like a security and high tech cameras or whatever. So that is variable depending on the location and what market you are and what building you're operating. So now expense, everyone understands the difference between gross and net lease now, right? Okay. So expense reimbursements is generally for a gross lease, right? Because what is happening is, say today you're paying XYZ of the amount, right? But or for the net, how much your tenant is going to pay you back for the expense. So suppose say you are owning one building. You are paying all the bills directly, okay? You are paying for the security guard, you're paying for the electricity, you're paying for XYZ and everything. How much would your tenant give you back out of it, right? You're not going to pay for his individual insurance, you're not going to pay for his individual things. He has to give you some portion back out of what you're spending. So how do we determine the actual expense reimbursements and how much like space 1, space 2, space 3, space 4, all of these 4 guys, how much do they owe the owner back, okay? To calculate this line, okay? On your Excel, just keep this blank for now. You don't have to fill anything over here, okay? As of now. The first thing to even find out, like, broadly what you want to do over here, so your case gives you 2 informations, right? What is the operating expense in the building?
530.
How much?
530,000 in 1998.
Yeah, but they're giving you some square footage, like 4.69 per square feet or something like that, right? So, yeah, so this is what your 576,426 is.
That's grossed up at 100% least.
Yeah. So, one
That's the
thing.
market number. Yeah, isn't that the market rate?
Yeah, because it says that a 90 gross rent with operating expenses above 450 per square foot are passed through the tenant in the case, whereas the market rate is net of 469.
469,
That's the
right?
net, that's the
So,
market rate.
so are you guys clear on the net lease versus gross lease component?
Yeah, I'm clear on that, but what I was getting at is the 450 was your building and
Right.
469 was the market number.
Yeah.
So what do we use? We use, 450 was your cap and 469 was the market. So
Yeah,
you're passing
use-
19 cents on to the tenant in your case, or?
Use the building cap for this.
Okay.
We're evaluating the building. Yeah.
It says 469 and 95% occupancy. Are you supposed to crank that up to 100% occupancy?
No.
And is
Well,
it
that's
is it
the market.
linear?
I would do it that way personally. Dr. Geltner does it 0.95. He does include the vacancy. If I were to do it in my way, that's something DCF is how you do it. You might want to do it 100% because I consider like even if the building is vacant, you're still gonna pay for your insurance and your security and whatever XYZ. So I would do it that way, to be honest.
Just, yeah, maybe we could walk through really quickly with the net and the gross. So is that reimbursable expenses, this only applies to gross rents?
Now,
Okay,
a reimbursable is like what your tenant is gonna pay you back. Okay.
okay.
Just imagine of net and gross, the only difference will be in the amount of rent that you're charging, right? So your triple net lease means what? Like okay, this is like $15 triple net. The tenant takes care of everything. Right? Okay, you are not involved at all. And if I say like $20 gross, that means that tenant is gonna pay $20, and I have to make sure that he gets whatever he needs. He gets his electricity, he gets his security, he gets everything.
So if
Up
this
to $4.50.
was- right, but I'm saying if this was a triple net lease, if we had triple net leases, would we have the expense reimbursement section on our discounted cash flow?
If this was a triple net lease, no.
That's what's
So
my
that's, so there's a bunch of different types of leases, that's where things can get a little confusing, but you have single net, which means that the tenant pays rent plus taxes. Double net, tenant pays rent, taxes, and insurance, and then triple net, where tenant pays rent, taxes, insurance, and operating expenses.
And
Now, this doesn't mean that if like the roof caved in on the building, that the tenant would have to pay for that. That's usually outlined in the lease. There's a certain like structural integrity that usually the landlord has to provide. So that would fall on the landlord if like the roof caved in.
Would it fall
And
under
it's
insurance?
all subject to, yeah, exactly, or insurance.
That would be the
Or
master
insurance.
insurance.
Or the deductible.
or on the triple net, at night, you might include the expenses though. You might not get the expense reimbursement, but you still need to account for the money that is going out. Yeah.
So if we have a $20 gross lease and our expense cap is at $4.50 a square foot, what is the net lease to us as the owner? How would you calculate that? If it's a
Can you say it
gross
again?
lease of $20 and we have an expense cap at $4.50,
Subtract.
what at the end of the day, what is our income? From that lease? $15.50, exactly. So that's why they're saying if you have new stock that's coming in with two buildings and they're charging $15 triple net, and we have leases from $13 to $20 gross, you subtract that $4.50 from that 13 or from that 20.
So you're only good on the 20 gross, essentially. You're even with them on the 20 gross,
Correct.
13 gross. You're
Yeah.
eating it real
So
bad.
essentially, we have below market rents, so we have room to, in theory.
In this case, the 1306 that we're modeling is a gross rent or a net rent?
Yes, that's gross.
Gross.
This is gross.
It's gross, got it.
And the tricky part to this is that you will have different tenants. So if this is like a retail building, not to get too sidetracked, and you had 30 different tenants, almost all those leases will probably have different CAM, which is common area maintenance, and basically expense reimbursement components. So that's where it gets really convoluted and complicated.
There are other ways also, like there would be like a base here, there would be like, there are different ways of getting expense reimbursement, so let's not deep dive into that. We'll stick on to this one. Okay, so this number, okay, now the landlord share is given at 422 per square feet, fixed, right? This is given in the case very straightforward, the same way you just figure out like what is going to be the landlord's share of this portion, and this is your entire 576, 545 is what your landlord is going to pay, right? So the difference, that is the potential difference that your tenants are going to be paying is like A minus B, 576 minus 545. So 3468 is actual number that you're going to get back from the different spaces, right? Your tenants are going to give you back that money. Okay. So now this, the portion before that, right? The expense reimbursement space 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now how do we figure out that this 30,000, who's going to pay how much money? Out of this 30,000, space 1 is going to pay how much? Space 2 is going to pay how much? Space 3 and space 4. Like how would we know that, right? So that is called something called as pro rata paripasu, like pro rata share. So whatever area that you are consuming, you would pay proportionate amount of share as an expense reimbursement to the owner, right? So how would you calculate that on the Excel? Okay. Again, maximum minimums don't get like bogged down or like anything about the Excel formula. Just think about it conceptually, right? So I'll just give it a shot. How much would this guy pay if 30,000 is the total amount that we are going to get back? How much would this guy 57,448 pay for the building? Fraction of like what he's consuming, right? So this is the I'm just going to read this formula. The maximum of like C29, C30 is just that 30,000, 575 minus 545, okay? Comma 0, don't think about it. So B21, what is B21? The area that he's consuming, 57,448. divided by sum of all of this. So he's just doing what is the percentage of his like area that is consuming into 1 minus C13 by C7. What is C13? C13, just go up. So C. Actually, go up. Just move. Show them the size.
Is it
Any clue? Anyone wants to guess what that might be?
Is a vacancy rate.
What?
You're discounting the vacancy rate.
Yeah.
Because you,
So
if, is it zero, so you're 100%, if no, you have to pay for that.
pay exactly. So anyway, so everyone got what she made the point. Okay, you want to try one more time? She made a very good point. Just
He's multiplying for the vacancy rate because if the space is empty, I have to pay
exactly.
for all the expenses.
So I'll tell one more time what she's trying to say is. So this number we only. So say for this portion, right? The space is vacant, right? Space is vacant. Suppose then who's going to pay for? The tenant is not going to reimburse if the space is vacant, right? The owner has to pay for the vacant space. So that's the reason you want to include the last part as well, like what is the proportionate dollar to see if the space is vacant or not. That's the only reason he's included it. Even if you don't include in that big formula, you can just have a look at it. If you feel it is zero, obviously the answer is not going to come up. You can exclude the portion totally and only include it when it is necessary. But conceptually, just understand that's the reason that we include the last portion. So similarly,
Can I ask a question really quickly before you move on? First question, is this spreadsheet with Geltner's little tab explanations going to be put in our resources? Great. Second question, can you explain again, and I'm sure you did, and I would just ask if you repeat it, why did you have the landlord share listed at 422 square foot gross rather than 450 that's said in the case? Because the case says that tenants pay above 450.
tenants
square
pay
foot?
about 450.
Yeah.
So why is it set at 420? Why is it that the landlord pays up to 422 rather than up to 450?
I don't think so. What I read from the case also mentions the landlord gives 422 per square feet. Doesn't it say?
What?
The landlord does what?
It's given in one of the exhibits, the same number 4.2, if I'm not mistaken. Remember?
It says in exhibit 4 for property 4.2 that the gross rent with OpEx above 450 per square foot is passed through to the tenant.
That means you're eating 450.
So you should be eating 450 of it, not 422.
If that's the case, I don't know this. Then I don't know that.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the number, but I don't know. Understand the concept. Doesn't really matter 420 to 450.
And then I guess, and secondarily to that, Charles mentioned that he was looking at the operating expenses based off of the 1998 performance that's listed in the exhibit, which was $530,000. But it sounds like what you guys are telling us to do was to use the market operating expenses at $469 per square foot that's listed. Why would you use a market, kind of in the market number, as opposed to what the actual building had in operating expenses in a given year?
Yeah, because see, I'll tell you why, right? Today, suppose you have an security guard, you must have made in contract with him like 2 years back, right, for X amount of dollars. But today you're making this DCF for 10 years down the line, right? So you want to see what are the market rates. Are the market rates increasing for janitorial services? Are the market rates increasing for cleaning ladies to come and clean? So that's the reason you want to always be as close to the market rates as you can, because at the end of the day, these guys are not going to stay for like all throughout the 10 years, right? It's going to change in between. So
you could have more confidence
you can
in the
use
going
the other
market
way
rate
also,
than
see.
you would in your own performance for a single year.
Yeah, and the thing is, see, you can do it the other way around also. There's no right or wrong to it. The same way, it's your perspective. If you feel comfortable, if you have this information that you're not going to be paying more than X amount of money for the next 10 years, and you're confident that this is exactly what your cost is going to be free to use that one. Then you don't need to use the market rates.
Because it's a big difference. Because in 1998, there was only $4.10 per square foot for the building's operating expenses. So you're jumping from a situation where tenants pay zero and reimbursable because you haven't hit the ceiling to a situation where they're already paying 11 cents over
Yeah.
at the start. So it does seem to make a huge difference just in your,
It does. So
there's no,
you want to use I would use the market rates.
okay.
Unless and until if you have the information that this is going to be a fixed cost for 10 years, then you would not use the market rates and use what exactly you're spending on the building. But you can use any number. Doesn't really have a
Any
rate.
number.
So, okay, so anyone clear until there now how we calculated all the expense reimbursements for all the 4 spaces, right? And if you sum all of this, right, 13,000, 7,000, 6,000, all of this should be the total like of what you. So whatever the difference it is amongst what the landlord is gonna pay and what expense reimbursement you gonna get back, that difference should tally up and then split amongst all the 4 spaces in the expense reimbursements. And finally, you arrive at your NOI, which is your total revenue minus your operating expenses. Clear with this? How everyone on the same page until the NOI?
I have a question on your top line for the rents.
The first
Yeah.
very top line?
I think you got it. I think it's listed as 1306 in 1998. Yeah, it says 1306, 99,
Yeah, so you
1998.
use the inflation, right? You use the percent growth.
Yeah, so the case says that, I think the case said that rents were going for between $13 and $15 triple net. Why do the 3% increase off of 1306 as opposed to some other number within the range $13 to $15?
You can use if you're confident. This is one way to do it. This is only one way that we've chosen this number. There is no, so now that is all qualitative analysis, which comes on to like, why would I use 13 versus why would I use 15, right? That depends on the market location, how old your building is, how good your building is, how do you see the potential of selling this building, how confident you are of getting that rent. That depends upon like a lot of qualitative assessment of the building, and that's how you would come up with this number. It's just that for this case, we've used, 13 or 13.06, whatever it is given, but for sure you can use 15 if you're very confident about the market.
You've
Okay.
signed
But the
leases at
lease-
1306.
Yeah.
Yeah, lease.
You're not trying to lease.
Well, no, just that, I mean, the 1306 was the lease, the existing leases for Green Spring and Energetics. I was just wondering if it was like, and so I'm assuming that's where that 1306 came from.
Yeah.
But a follow-up to that though is, so you're gonna lease various sized spaces to different tenants. There's likely flexibility in the market to rent at different square footages for each tenant or available space. So you have a really big tenant, you might give $13, smaller tenant, $14. Great. Using the model, how how do you generally use the model to like account for like varying potential market rents?
Like you mean like a probabilistic way of doing market rents? Like you say like one guy can get like 13, another guy can get it like 10, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we do it in Argos generally. Argos is the way to go about it. Excel is not really the best way to do all of those probabilistic things, because then you can do it like a separate line item and everything. But now what Argos helps you to do is like you can put every lease at whatever rent you want to do, whatever time period you want to do. So Argos has a lot of flexibility. And in Excel you can do like what, 5, 10, 15 tenants. Argos you can do like 100 tenants, right? 100 tenants is very difficult for me to even run an Excel for.
It just gets real complicated.
Yeah, so this is just a simple model just to show how the whole process works. You can definitely do all of that in Argos, but not like this level. We're just trying to introduce to the class like what the DCF is and how do you think about it.
Remember at the end, you're gonna be doing underwriting to go out and bid against other bidders. It's gonna be a competition, so you gotta feel confident. I guess to answer your question more precisely, what number do you get? It's a number that you actually feel comfortable that you're gonna get your returns back if you actually win the bid.
right? So you gotta be as realistical as possible as you can with your expectations. You can put 100 if you want. You're gonna possibly win the bid and then you're gonna go broke, right? So it's, it's just weighing that, and the numbers come usually from the market experience, comping leases and values.
And the opposite, you don't want to be so conservative that you never want to bid.
There you go. If you're so conservative, you're gonna lose every bid and then you're not gonna invest. Yeah, good point.
From my understanding, for the operating expense, it's not fixed because it's based on the appraisal value, especially the property tax. So it's really based on what your vacancy rate as well as your other expense like insurance. It's also part of based on your vacancy rate. So you can't really assume that's a fixed number. And even though it's let's make it simple, it's fixed, but why you use the triple N per square feet times 95%, now divide by 95%.
I lost you, man. I don't know.
The last portion I did not get, but otherwise I'm saying fixed. So generally your taxes and your insurance, in technical terms, you always call it kind of a fixed expense because you somewhat know what the county is going to charge you for the taxes. You know what the insurance is going on. So for all buildings, that's going to be the same rate for taxes. They don't change. Like if a building is like the vacant, so it does not mean that will be a lower property tax. So vacancy and taxes have no correlation.
In reality, that will be lower if you have a low occupancy rate.
Yeah, low occupancy taxes you have to pay. That is the government. You can't do anything with it. Property tax is gonna come anyways, even if it is like occupied, not occupied, does not really matter. The variable portion that you're talking with the vacancy which comes is like how you maintain the building, like your day-to-day actual expense on maintaining the building. Those are gonna be like variable depending upon like how much your building is occupied, how much it is vacant, and how much money you want to spend versus you don't want to spend. But taxes and insurance, just think of it, it's gonna be like you have to pay it for any case. All buildings are same on that front.
In Exhibit 2, page 7, it says absorption and turnover vacancy should be included in general vacancy. What does it mean?
In Exhibit 2, I don't know.
Page 7. It says absorption and turnover vacancy should be included.
Did you understand how they configure your
Yeah, so
the
just
vacancy allowance?
I mean, I know what they did formulaically. They took like 70% times.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it one more time on this. Okay, so Exhibit 2, he had just one question, there's someone, the case says like, assume your absorption and turnover vacancy into the general vacancy. So it just means that the general vacancy that you're considering 5%, what is vacant is separate, right? You know what this portion is vacant, right? But apart from that, you use that 5% general vacancy rule to accommodate for like your absorption factors, like, how you're gonna have some natural vacancy in the market, right? And how much is gonna get absorbed versus how much is not gonna get absorbed, and what is the turnover vacancy, like what is the turnover time of like another one tenant to leave and the other tenant to come. So all of those minute details just include everything in the general vacancy rate. So that's only a clause. So you don't have to do anything about it in the DCF, nothing at all. Don't even, we're just telling you that the 5% accommodates everything. So I think so we are good until NOI. Okay.
My question is about the rent. So it's mentioned in this material that the space 3, the rent, the gross rate is $20. So why don't we have a separate rent for that?
Space 3, the general rent is, we should, that's what I'm telling you, that's why I told him we should have it.
This is like 7, that's why probably this is 7.
Yeah, but this is just to show Excel in a simple format how DCF is done. We should do that. In Argus, we should do it. 100% we should do it. This is just to show like how the Excel is placed, nothing else, Just think of, don't even think about the case. I'll say just think about it as like, imagine everything is at $13. These are the 4 different people who are like renting your building, how much money you will get and how would you come up at a value. Just think about it, how do you actually do the mechanics and come up at a value. You should use 20, yeah. Okay, now, post the NOI, there only one last thing is like, so all the below the line expenses, right? Below the line, what covers your debt service? Everyone's aware about the debt service now. How much like you're gonna pay to the bank for your mortgage? Your capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is all the money that you spend on like the roofs or like upgrading the building, doing the lobby work, etc., etc. Your leasing commissions and your tenant improvements. Okay. So everyone aware about the tenant improvements and why they are given or versus like the leasing commissions? People know about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so see, tenant improvements is today, suppose I'm the owner and I rent out this space to you, okay? And you are MIT, you come and tell me, I will lease this space, provided you give me some allowance to do the interior work, the interior fit out of the building so that I can actually customize this space to my needs, okay? So that is tenant improvement. So whatever improvements that a tenant wants, the owner pays for it. So that's why we have a line item for it below the NOI, which is called as tenant improvement. Second is leasing commission. The same way, you're not going to come directly to me. If there is a broker in between, you'll like get a broker and come to me that okay, he's shown you a space, so I'm going to pay him a leasing commission as an owner because he got you the tenant into the building, right? So that is leasing commissions, that is tenant improvements and capital expenditures. And fourth portion is the debt service. Don't think about debt service right now. We're going to go into much detail in module 3. Right now, just think about it as like CapEx, which includes of your common area physical improvements, PIs, and leasing commissions. So the important thing out of after you do the NOI and your so this is done. Now PBTCF, okay, property before tax cash flow, okay, that is simply your NOI minus your CapEx. Whatever the answer is, whatever the below the line expenses are, you just deduct out of the NOI and you'll get like a property before tax cash flow, okay. So this is the final line item over here. Now the implications are important to understand from here is, okay, so I'm sure this Todd must have gone over cash on cash returns and what are the yields, right? So you know the differences between that. What is a cash on cash return versus what is a general IRR return? I'll just go over it one more time in any case. So whenever you talk about cash on cash, okay. So cash on cash is how much exact money I'm putting in and what is the exact money that I'm gonna get out of it, okay? Net. I want to remove all the debt service I'm gonna pay to the bank. I want to remove all the tenant improvements, all the capital expenditures, XYZ, whatever I'm gonna spend on the building. I want to remove everything and I just want to include what the money I'm gonna pay for it, okay? So suppose this building I buy for like say 10 million, okay? So this is what I'm going to put inside the building, okay? And then after like removing everything, okay, I'm not using the NOI, I will use the PBTCF. After all my expenses and everything, what is the value I'm getting? So obviously I have to use the cap rate to exactly find out a discount rate to come up at a value or whatever. So basically for cash on cash, you would use your PBTCF number. Okay. And when you do your IRRs, your normal NOI IRRs, above the line incomes and vacancies and operating expenses, that will actually give you your IRR yields. Okay. So that is when you look at a DCF and someone tells you, what is an IRR yield, then you would look at your NOI column, NOI line item, and if you want to see the cash on cash, you would see what you are exactly buying it, and you want to see your PBTCF line and not the NOI line. Okay, I'll deep dive into this also in a couple minutes if you want to. And okay, any other questions on the layout structure, because this is main, right? This is the main thing we wanted to discuss in the recitation. Yeah. Any questions pertaining to this?
Yeah, can you repeat the cash on cash, please?
Yeah, cash on cash is what money I'm putting in and what is the return I'm gonna get on it. Okay.
Before tax.
Before tax.
Okay.
Before tax. So it would include your leasing commissions, TIs, your capital expenditure that you want to put inside, but you will not put in the taxes. Only the taxes will be a separate thing. But otherwise, you'll include all your expenses in it to come on a cash on cash.
So it will be the NOI minus the capex, right?
Capex, perfect. Perfect. All the money that you are putting in your capex. Okay. Any questions? I think this is the main thing we wanted to
Question is
cover.
why you exclude the tax?
What?
Why you exclude the tax?
Taxes because different rates, right? You can't like how would you compare one person to another person?
No, because you're calculating your own returns.
Yeah,
but if suppose I am the investor, okay, and you are my private equity shop, okay, and if you and I want to compare you with like 3 other private equity shops, and you are based in New York, the other guy is based in Dallas. How would I actually compare your past performance, cash on cash, if I include taxes, which is a variable number in every state and every place, every county, it differs. How would I exactly compare you with a guy sitting in Dallas? So I want to see what have you as an investment manager, how much money do you put in to upgrade the building? How much revenue have you generated, and how much, what is the typical amount of rent value add you've done in every project versus another guy who's sitting in some other county?
Yeah, but the thing is, if you, let's say 2 brothers in different states, and once they have a lower tax and once they higher, and when you calculate the returns, if you ignore the tax part, make probably, the tax rate higher, probably you get a higher return, but if you consider both, probably the answer will be different.
But
So
the
that's what I'm
thing
saying.
is, you have 2 levels of analysis. You have the property level, which is the one we're analyzing right now, and then you got the partnership level, which is one we're going to analyze in the next module. At the property level, which is the one we're analyzing now, you're analyzing the property, or as Javier said, the enterprise for the slowness. What you're doing is, and what are you trying to get is, should I buy this property or that property? And you should take only into account the things that are relevant for the property, not to you as an investor, because you can decide on taking 100% leverage, 50 or all equity. You can have different tax brackets depending on your wealth. So those things play out differently. And if you actually compare partnership levels, you cannot do an apple-to-apple comparison. So you cannot decide, should I invest in this one, in this building, or in the other one. While if you do a property level analysis, the property is not going to change. It's not, that's the property, it independently of who buys it, right? If you buy it or if Paul buys it, it's going to be the same property, and you're going to be able to analyze that apple to apple.
But you have to pay property taxes.
Property taxes are actually included in the
operating expenses. So that's why I said the fixed taxes
the
are
corporate taxes are included in the partnership level.
So your insurance, property taxes are the fixed components of your operating expenses. Okay. So, all right. So after you do all of this, obviously you want to come up at a present value. The whole idea of like doing this exercise is to understand what you want to pay for the building today, right? So that is like again the same thing. So NPV, to find out an NPV right now, Dr. Geithner is using 12% as the discount rate, right? Now discount rate is again like the very, very fuzzy number. Like you can use 10%, you'll get a different answer. Someone will use 11%, you'll get a different answer, right? So I don't know, you want to talk some more about like how do you come up with a discount rate? Actually that's 1.3, right? More of opportunity cost of capital and like how do you come up? So right now just think of it like discount rate is like, so just understand the concept of NPV, like what is net present value is your cash flows in the future. Seeing your cash flows, what you're going to earn like every year on year for the next 10 years, what do you want to pay for it today? So I'm betting on a property, seeing its revenue in the next 10 years, right? So that is the basic framework how the present value works. So whatever I'm earning, I want to discount it to the present value to understand this is the price I want to pay today, whatever 13 million or whatever it comes. So that is what I want to pay for the building today. using this discount rate and projecting these revenues for the next 10 years. So this is just an educated guesswork where you make like a 10-year guesses of like using different inputs, come up with an answer, discount it again to the present value to understand what is the price you want to pay.
What's percentage present value due at reversion? What is percentage present value due at reversion?
Percentage PV due to, this is just telling you for reversion is the sale price.
Yep.
Right. So what percentage of this is due to the reversion, like the value?
Got it.
Understood? Like what is the percentage because of the reversion? So you don't even like right now, don't even look at it. Basically just understand PV, IRR, how to make the DCF, how to do the reversion, and how do you come up with this number of 13 million?
That going in cap rate is NOI. Has that been calculated? Is that just the first year's NOI divided by that 13 million?
What do you think? That should be it, right?
Yeah, or it's a number that, I mean, you could take the cap rate and go the other way.
Going in, you've done it exactly the first time. First thing you said, the first year's NOI you've taken, and you calculated from that.
Can you go down to the formula for initial yield?
And where did you get the 13 million from as opposed to the 11 for the original price?
That is how we calculated the present value, right? PV, 12% using the 12% discount rate.
Oh, so the 13 million is the 11.4 million that they bought it for. Wait, what?
11.4 million, don't think about like this. That is what they bought for you, saying that's given in the base.
Yeah.
No, this we are seeing, the DCF just tells you, seeing at the projected revenues, what I want to pay for it today. I would buy it for 13 million because my projections tell me that I could earn X amount of revenue from this, and when I discount it back to the present value, I can pay 13 million, right? That's why Fanny had like a 10 million answer, someone had like a 14 million answer, someone had a 15 million answer, right? Why people had a different buy price? Because it is just like my educated guess that I'm gonna buy it for 13 million. What they've bought it is, so they made a good deal or a bad deal then? They made a good deal, right?
Good deal because they bought it underneath
Yeah,
what it's
they saved $2 million then, because if we are thinking that we can buy it for 13 and they bought it for 11, so it's a good thing for them.
Got it.
So this is just my guesswork, my educated guesswork to come up with like what I'm gonna pay for the property when I wanna go ahead and buy it.
And as the portfolio manager, that's looking at how much you would get from a sale, basically. Because you're valuing the whole property and you're like, this is how much I think it's gonna go to market and get if I were to sell it today.
Correct. Yeah, not a portfolio manager, an acquisitions guy would look at it like that. Yeah.
But actually on your purchase price, you would not think about your purchase price when you do the valuation.
You would not think about your 1997 purchase
Yeah,
price.
if you paid 11 million for this, it doesn't matter. You're looking at this as like a third party would and just valuing the asset.
And you're trying to make it, you're valuing it based on a specific return that you're trying to achieve.
You're valuing based on how the property.
How realistic your rents are, how realistic it's gonna grow. You're valuing it from your educated guesses about the market and the property. So you're including everything, the potential income that you're gonna get. You're reducing all the vacancies. You're reducing all the capex. You're just trying to be as real as possible to come up with the value.
Don't confuse. I think what you're thinking is like decision process. Do we
Yeah.
hold it? Do we sell it? At that point, you want to bring into like what you paid for, the
Correct,
direction
yeah.
you owned it, all that.
Wholesale is
Valuations,
different, yeah.
Just performance.
Got it.
Sir.
Why are B62 and B63 different?
Which one?
Going in cap and initial yield.
One is based on the NOI, the other is based on the TCF, which is, your net cash flow. It's NOI minus CapEx.
That's a good question.
Oh, the difference being capex. Capex is the difference in the revenue number. Okay.
All right.
And that can be yeah, cap rate you don't take into account capex.
So the initial yield is actually more
expenditure.
conservative big number. I'm quite sure.
Yields like a cash on cash. what could actually do on it. Same.
So there are a lot of words in the market, like initially, cash on cash, David used something else, someone else will use something else, but just understand conceptually what each one of it means.
What do you use for 10.5%, the conversion cap?
There.
You gotta estimate.
Oh, this
what's
one.
gonna be the-
So that is, you can put it at 11% if you think, that's like at the sale reversion, like what are you gonna get?
But it says it's 9.5 to 10.5, right?
Yeah, so we've used 10.5, so there, okay, you tell me.
Why do you use 10.5?
So you tell me, why would we, what is the, how does cap rate work? Higher cap rate means what?
Lower price. Lower price.
Higher cap rate means what? Higher cap rate means that building is not as safe as you think. It has a little more risk premium to it. It might be a little more. You're not betting on it that favorably, right? So this building maybe, I don't know, David's using 10.5 because he thinks that, it does not justify him using like a lower cap rate to sell this one. He wants to sell it at 10.5 thinking that this location, this building, I'm gonna sell it for this cap rate. You can use 9.5 if you think that, it's a very nice building, it's gonna really sell it off pretty quickly and you're gonna get that value. So it depends on you again.
Maybe we'll get into, I'm sure we will get to this later, but wouldn't we ordinarily be able to use our debt and what we purchased the building for and our net operating income to actually come up with a more accurate number of what the capitalization rate is? For real, like how much we're paying back?
You're saying how do we include debt into this? You're saying how we include debt into this?
Yeah, I mean, won't we eventually use debt to help us?
Oh, yeah, we will, no? So see, this is another, so I didn't want to go into that right now, but I'll just give you a brief overview why we are, so these are all what unlevered returns, right? Okay. These are all unlevered returns. You're looking, whenever, a lot of people have different ways of doing things, but if you want to really like look at pure real estate, what is your building capacity? Everyone can use a leverage, and leverage is always going to give you higher returns because leverage is kind of the way to boost your way. But if you really want to see an asset level comparison of this property, should I buy MIT's building or should I buy Harvard's building? Like if I want to compare real asset comparison, I would want to see the unlevered returns first. But mortgage and everything will come in mortgage rate will be below the NOI. That will again go into your below the line costs. That is exactly your debt service and your mortgage payments will all go over there.
Taxes on corporate taxes, personal taxes.
So right now we are all looking at unlevered returns. Okay, unlevered returns are the most realistic way of looking at the real property performance without considering any leverage, any financial other things to boost the returns. So we are looking at everything unlevered. You guys have any?
That 12% was the discount rate, right? Is that okay? Yes. And then you but and that was that used for the reversion for the sale, the final sale number also? You just
Which 12%?
Yeah.
No. Oh yeah, for discounting it to the present value, yes, but for selling 10.5.
Because it takes in the reversion price of 16 million.
Yeah.
So you got it right. It's two different things. 12% is just bringing everything to present.
And you created that reversion price by using the
Yeah, that is a cap rate.
Yeah,
That's a cap rate. This is a discount rate.
But you can actually do another DCF with the next 2 years and discount those against the reversion price.
You could do that. Yeah.
Remember, there's just cap rate and just what you could actually do from year 11 to year 20.